positioned behind the priests as they bless, and the priests are simply the conduit through which God blesses us directly. I thought that was cool.
It is. There are those who suggest that that is one of the reasons why the Chazan says the word, in other words, it sort of instructs them on the words as they're saying it, so that the impression is that they give the blessing, it's from God in the merit of the congregation. It's not something that's just coming from some powerful people. Hey, Jean. Hey, Lois.
Hey, Rabbi. Hi.
Hi.
She will be tuning in or calling us shortly.
Lynn is you don't mess with Lynn. If you're not on this class, Lynn calls you. Did you ever get a call, Jason?
No.
You call Jason next time. If you don't see Jason,
not the class.
Who gets a call?
if you don't see Jason, Lynn, from now on,
Give him a call.
No, about what I call something.
just checking something here. As we wait for, look, she came right on. Rachel comes on. You don't mess, do not mess with Lynn.
Sometimes, not always. I would agree with that.
Hey, Rachel.
Hi,
Hi.
I'm joining today with Aryeh.
Oh, very nice. Welcome, Aryeh. Welcome. Let's just see. Almost ready to start here.
Hey, Lynn.
A minute or two more.
The machine likes us today. The machine likes us today. You want a lot or a little? What?
Okie dokie. So today in our studio audience, we have Jason, we have Liz, we have Lynn, and we have Annie, and we have Sammy, who's off in the bleachers. He's in the bleacher section playing Minecraft or something. And we have Rachalea and Lois and Jean in the ether. So I was at a wedding in Toronto. I came back, I just got back a couple hours ago, yesterday. I'm a jet setter.
You really
Yes.
are.
I don't remember traveling this much for so little. Traveling so much for so little. But it's not, when I say so little, what I mean is that I don't have to do anything. I just have to show up. But apparently that's 80% of life, which is a quote attributed to Woody Allen. 80% of life is just showing up. And so that is my mission, to show up, but to try to show up, to really show up fully and present, in a present sort of way. Anyway, so this was a lovely wedding in Toronto. It was the Perlow family, who are members of Darchei Noam, not just members, they are a pillar of the community. And it was their daughter, Ilana, who was marrying a young man named Corey Freeman. And they belong to a synagogue in Philadelphia called the Shtiebel. And it's run by Rabbanit Fruchter, Dasi Fruchter. And so at some point in the evening, she mentioned Birkas Kohanim. She mentioned the blessing that the Kohanim make, and how when there's a blessing that they make on the blessing. So the Kohanim themselves are giving a bracha to they are conduits, as Jason was explaining to me just before, making sure I got it straight before we had our class going, that the Kohanim are conduits for blessing. God is the blesser. God's the one who's giving the bracha, but they are conduits for the blessing. And so there is a bracha that they make before they do the actual blessing. And their bracha is Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam asher ki. So blessed are you, God, King of the universe, asher kitshanu b'kedushato shel Aaron, who sanctified us with the sanctity of Aaron, v'tzivanu, and commanded us levarech et amo Yisrael, to bless his nation Israel, bi'ahava, with love. So she was highlighting that this Birkas Kohanim was supposed to be, said with love, which is an interesting little something. Now, where does that come from? That they should do it with love. So I happen to have my handy dandy art scroll, pocket art scroll. It's not really a pocket sitter unless you have giant pockets.
Cargo
But I
pants.
think, yeah. But and it says here, the Kohanim are to feel love for the congregation when they pronounce the blessings. The addition of the phrase "with love" is based upon the Zohar in our Torah portion. So we are learning a Zohar. Any Kohen who does not have love for the congregation, or for whom the congregation has no love, it could go either way, may not raise his hand to bless the congregation.
They say, I'm not feeling it.
There, if it's okay, by the way, if somebody's in a Veilus, well, that's a slightly different thing. That's not because of the love. That's another thing, which is one of the conditions that a Kohen is supposed to have. Kohen's supposed to feel love and also be beloved. Also, they're supposed to feel joy. One of the explanations for why we don't do Birkas Kohanim every day in Chutz La'aretz, and they do it in Israel, and it seems like you're supposed to do it every day, but somehow we don't outside of Israel. It's one of the interesting halachic conundrums. Why is it that we don't do Birkas Kohanim every day in Chutz La'aretz? One of the explanations that is given is because in Chutz La'aretz, it's harder to experience joy in the everyday. In Israel, it's easier to experience joy in the everyday. In Chutz La'aretz, it's harder because you're in exile. You're in double exile. Everybody's in exile. What? Chutz La'aretz is outside of Israel, outside the land. And so, but on Yom Tov, you can feel it. So therefore, on Yom Tov, where you can gather the requisite joy, then the Kohanim do Birkas Kohanim in Chutz La'aretz. But in Israel, where it's easier to feel the joy, they can muster the joy, experience the joy on a day-to-day basis easier. So therefore, they say it every day. That's one of the explanations for why, one of the most often quoted explanations for why it is that, by the way, it's only Ashkenazim who don't say Birkas Kohanim every day in Chutz La'aretz. Sephardim do. I don't know if every part of the Sephardic world does, but I know that it is generally to be expected if you're in a Sephardic synagogue in Chutz La'aretz that there will be Birkat Kohanim. So it's Ashkenazim in Chutz La'aretz that tend not to say it. But anyways, the explanation most often quoted is the joy thing, that you're supposed to experience joy. In fact, if the custom is that if you have a Kohen who is mourning, he should leave before Birkas Kohanim happens so that he won't be called up to do Birkas Kohanim, because the feeling is if he's in a state of mourning, he's not going to be able to gather the requisite joy to be able to do Birkas Kohanim. It's also interesting because we say Birkas Kohanim on Yom Kippur, even Ashkenazim and Chutz La'aretz. And so it's sort of funny to think about how Yom Kippur could be a day of joy. It is, but it's not what you it's not how you typically think about Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur is not a day of mourning. Yom Kippur is a day of tshuva, but it's not a day of mourning. So there is joy that you're supposed to experience. We're supposed to experience a certain degree of joy in Yom Kippur, and therefore you could do Birkas Kohanim on that day. So the Kohanim are supposed to, according to the Zohar, they're supposed to be feeling love. And they're also supposed to be in a state of joy when they make this, when they bless us, when they do this bracha. So when she was mentioning it, it just triggered a stream of consciousness in my mind. And so I thought I would share some of that stream with you. Maybe it'll turn into a river. I doubt it. It's probably just stay a stream, a trickling stream, but you never know. So first of all, and we've talked about bracha before, what a bracha is. The Hebrew word bracha, according to Rabbi Shlomo ben Aderet, the Rashba, who was one of the very important Spanish scholars in the 1300s. At one point, he seemed to be sort of the head of Spanish scholarship. After the Ramban, after Nachmanides left Spain for a period of time, he seemed to be the great sage of Spanish Jews. And so he suggests that the etymology of the word bracha is brecha. Brecha means like a spring of water, or a pool that, like a pool that emerges from a spring. And so the idea is that when somebody gives a bracha, that they are channeling this kind of life-giving energy, just like a spring of water is life-giving energy. Imagine you have a field which has no moisture. You've planted all sorts of seeds, and then you channel an irrigation. You have like an irrigation ditch. You channel the water from a spring, and now the water fills that field, and the seeds are able to reach their potential. They're fruitful. They achieve fruition. So in that model, the water is a kind of life-giving energy, which we often think of water in that way. Rain is a kind of prototypical expression of blessing. We have a term, gishmei bracha, rain of blessing. So there is the Ramban Nachmanides in his commentary on the Torah suggests that rain is a great symbol of blessing, of the notion of blessing. So you have water as this kind of divine energy. So you're channeling divine energy in the direction of something, could be a person, could be a thing. And that energy, like spring water, would animate and give rise to the potential that is in that object or person that you are blessing. We are, Avraham is told at the beginning of Lech Lecha, when he's told, go to this land, which I'm going to show you, he says, you will be bracha. You're going to be bracha. People are going to be blessed through you. When people bless you, they're going to be blessed. People are going to be blessed. Everybody, all the nations, everybody's going to be blessed through you. You're going to be a source of bracha. Well, again, it's not that he originates the energy. He's not the originator of the energy. He's a channel of the energy. When somebody gives bracha, they are a channel of this divine energy. And this is something that we had to sort of, I guess, be told that this is something that exists and is possible. And by Avram, he's told about this, but it was known before. Noah already gives blessings even before Abraham. And but that's how we understand blessing according to the Rashba, Rabbi Shlomo ben Aderet. So when the Kohanim are giving a blessing, they would be doing something in the mode of blessings in general. They are channeling this life-giving energy that is available, this divine energy that is available, and sort of directing it in a particular direction. We are told that we are all able to do this. And even there's a caution in the Gemara. It says that the blessing of even a simple person should not be light in your eyes. Even a simple Jew gives a blessing. It shouldn't be light in your eyes. Now, this is something that anybody could tap into, and it's not just something that we hope somebody else might do for us, but it's something that we are invited to engage in ourselves, to give each other blessings. My Mechudin, my daughter-in-law, Neshama's father, just had his birthday, and whenever he has a birthday, he happened to call me on his birthday, and he said, "It's my birthday today, so I can give brachos." And then he gave me a bracha. And there's something about it where you want to take it very seriously. Also, I remember when he was the sandik at one of the grandchildren's. He was the sandik, I think, at either he was or I was. I think he was. He was the sandik at Gadi. So he was giving brachos then also, because there's a tradition that somebody's, and it was like, and people are coming, and you feel like something's going on when that happens, but it's something that we should be able to do at any time. We have a custom. There is a custom on Friday nights that a father gives blessings to his children. And there are families where this is taken very seriously, the blessings for the children. Again, this father is not even a Kohen. He's not necessarily a famous tzaddik. He's a Jewish person, and Jewish people give blessings. It's something that we do. It's one of the things that we do. So I guess when the Kohanim are being instructed to give blessings with love and with joy, feeling joy, that this would be something that we should model when we are giving blessings. That if we're going to be giving our blessing, it's very important that we do it with love, that we love the person we're giving the blessing to, and we are beloved to the person who we are giving the blessing. And we're also experiencing joy. When Yitzchak is going to give his blessings to who he thought was Esav originally, so he asked him to hunt for him, to find him game. So which meant that he was going to come back with the results of his hunting, probably cooked as well, not just the animal. Yeah, and he was going to present him a meal. He would eat the meal, and then he would bless him. And we see Yaakov having to figure out a way to get a meal without hunting. He ends up making his favorite, Yitzchak's favorite meal, which Rivka knew, which Rivka cooked up. And then, but you see him being fed or presented with food before him and eating to feel good. So, and I remember that I was once talking about this with David Friedman, the artist, and Kabbalist who lived in Tzfat. We were talking about it one time, and he was highlighting that. He was saying like this, it's important when somebody's going to give a bracha that you give them something that they get some kind of joy, a little bit joy from you, a little something for the, and it could even just be a gift but it also, obviously, if they can feed you or give you a gift, because when they're feeling the love, that is an essential kind of setting, an essential condition for the blessing to occur. You could say that the joy is not necessarily unrelated to love, because joy is often the byproduct of love. They're not unrelated. They don't necessarily have to be, you don't have to be experiencing them at the same time. But when you're feeling love, you often are feeling joy. And in fact, it's one of the indications of love that the person is just very happy around the other person. It's one of the indications of love. I think the Ramchal even says this, Ramosha Chaim Luzzatto, I think he might even say it in the Seal Shasharim when he's talking about love, that one of the indications of it is joy when you're with the person that you love. So they're not completely unrelated. Rabbi Aryeh Kaplan, of blessed memory, in his book Meditations on Meditation and the Bible, he has a few meditation books. One is called Jewish Meditation, another one's called Meditation in Kabbalah, and another one's called Meditation in the Bible. In Meditation in the Bible, he talks about what a prophet is. And he suggests using the word Navi. Navi is one of the most common terms for a prophet. There are other words. There's Chozeh, like somebody who sees, like a seer, and a Tzofeh, which also can mean like a seer from a distance. There are other words for them, but Navi is the one that is most often used. And he suggested that if you take the two-letter root, the nun bet of the word Navi, there are all sorts of other two-letter words, two-letter roots that are related to it. This is a theory of Hebrew that I don't know if everybody ascribes to, but there are those who suggest that there are these two-letter roots. In fact, Rabbi Fox was just telling me about this on Shabbos, that I forgot who he said, but there was this rabbi who did this with the letters Pei Resh. He showed how the letter Pei Resh is related to all those two letters. If whatever comes after them is a word that means something like separation or divide, you could do you add an aleph, a bet, a gimel, a dalet, a hey. If you could add all sorts of letters after it, and you get all these various words that are related to that. So he suggested that there are all sorts of words connected to nun bet, and amongst them are like if you put them all together, you get a kind of family of meaning. So for instance, niv means fruit of the lips, niv sfasayim. So words are called niv sfasayim, sometimes the fruit of the lips. So there are those who suggest that navi is related to niv, like the fruit, and that it would be about speaking, about the spoken word. But he suggested it's also related to the word biv, beis, yud beis, which means like a pipe or a channel. And putting together these various words, he came to a channel of divine energy that often results in speech, but not just speech. It can result in all sorts of things. That's why prophets are connected to the miraculous, because they are channels for divine energy. So and sometimes as a channel for divine energy, that energy is impacting on this world and making all sorts of things happen. My image for this is a comic, Doonesbury comic that I once saw, where it was just one frame, and in the frame you have Zonker walking through a park, and in front of him it's in black and white, and behind it, as he's walking through it, there's color and butterflies and flower, flourishing and all this kind of stuff. So you sort of think of that whenever I think about a Navi, because they're channeling this divine energy. At one point, Elio Navi is told, God tells him, I'm making a famine, you have to leave. And the impression you get is there can't be a famine in a place where he is, because he is just a channel of divine energy and blessing and all this kind of stuff. And you're not going to have a famine if he's around. So you had to actually leave so God could make a famine that could take place. I guess once it takes hold, then you can walk there and it's not going to totally destroy it. But even when you see them walking through, they're doing things like feeding people and all sorts of stuff's going on in their wake, because they are like these channels for divine energy. Very similar to what you hear about this notion of blessing, especially the idea that the Kohanim have to be happy when they're making the blessings, because they say the similar thing about the prophet, about Nevi'im. When Elisha is getting ready to give prophecy at one point in the book of Kings, he calls for musicians to come and play music so that he can because he needs to feel joy in order for prophecy to happen. So it's because it's a condition of prophecy. So it feels very similar. What is happening with blessing, as the Kohanim are making this blessing, they are in some sense becoming a channel for this divine energy as it goes through, in a way that's not unlike what a prophet does when the prophet is channeling divine energy. And therefore it makes sense that in both cases, there needs to be joy, or you could say that it's instructive that in both cases there needs to be joy. And one of the things that points to the idea that both of them are doing something similar. I've always felt that if you wanted to really see a blessing in action, the impact of a blessing in action, watch somebody as they're being told by somebody else that they love them. Like watch the body language of somebody when they're told, when somebody says, I love you. And I think there are, if we think about it, when somebody told us that, and especially if it was like, well, we're really feeling the love. When you feel it and you fill up, you rise, as it were, your stature, you rise to your fullness, the fullness of your stature. So you become full. It would be like if you saw a flower just as the sun is first shining on it, you just see this flower just rise up to the sun. That's what it looks like when somebody tells somebody else they love them. And especially when they could use it. There's some moments where you're just having a day, and I think of my grandmother or somebody just it was a moment, I'm not completely expecting it, not having a great day. And it could be my grandmother or somebody just saying, I love you. And it just like catches you in a moment. You're just like, that is like the great to me, the great image for blessing, model for what the expectation is. Only obviously, when we're talking about energy, we're talking about something even much more. There is a culture of blessings that is very much a part of Jewish life, and in certain parts of the world, of the Jewish world, it's a serious business getting a blessing, especially if there's an important moment in your life. Getting a blessing from a great person it's on the to-do list. I remember before I got married, I went to Bnei Brak to get a blessing from the stipler, from Rav Yaakov Yisrael Kanievsky of blessed memory. And and it was what you did. You didn't just get it from the stipler, but for a lot of us, that was considered like the pilgrimage for your blessing, to go to the stipler. And so I went to the stipler for a blessing beforehand. And part of it is that you went on a whole trip to get the blessing. That's also a part of it. So a year later, or less, maybe a year later from that blessing, my Tzippi was pregnant, and I went to the stipler again, this time to get a blessing, because she was pregnant. So I went in it was on a Saturday night, on a Motzoi Shabbos in Bnei Brak, and I went in, and what you do is he couldn't hear well. He was in his 90s probably at that time. He couldn't hear well, could hardly hear. You had to shout in his ear if you were going to talk to him. And also he didn't see well. So what you would do is you'd write out your name, what you wanted the blessing for, and then he would read it. And we were told he would keep it and, say Tehillim connected to it afterwards. But so what you did, so you hand him the paper, and he puts it it's right like this. It looks like it's right next, like it's touching his nose, and he's reading it, and then he goes, I already gave you a blessing. How many blessings do you, how many blessings do you need? Mea brachos, 100 blessings. He was like chiding me. Why I came now?
He remembered you?
How could he possibly remember me? The man, tens of thousands of people. There's lines of people every day to get blessings from him. But this was like added to the stories of the stipler. But this was like, that was one of the Kama brachos mea brachos. So, but it was like even this last Pesach, I was in Israel for Pesach, and I have a friend. His name is Wilshansky, Pesach Wilshansky. He and I were chavrusas going back 45 years ago. Right. We learned, besides being close friends at the time, we also learned Ramban together on Chumash. And so he, and we've been close friends since. He is a physician. He's at this point in his career, he's the head of a department at Hadassah. And he treats a lot of Gerer Hasidim. In Israel, they call them Hasidei Gur. But when you say it in English, you say Gerer Hasidim. This in Israel, I think they are the largest Hasidic group in Israel. There's a lot of Gerer Hasidim, and the Ger Rebbe is in Jerusalem, and
he like a giant shul.
Yes, they do, and they just built a gianter one. Yeah, so it's not that, because it's named after a town in Poland called Gur. Oh. It's not. It's just a pronunciation of a town. It's not related to convert. So, but they're called Gerer Hasidim, and I think they are the largest. So they just built this thing. It looks like an airport terminal, but it's not. It's like sort of. There was a military base called Schneller right in this area near Geula, near Mea Sharim. And it was no longer a military base, and they've now developed it as a real estate place. So back there, they built this building. Shauli and I went. So what happened was my friend Washansky said, "I'm going to the Ger Rebbe. You want to come with me?" Because he gets to go in, he gets taken in, like VIP service. And he asked if we want to go. We said, of course we want to go. So you show up at this place, and it really looks like an airplane terminal. It's still being built, but it's massive. And there were thousands of men. All you see is men, thousands of Ger Hasidim, all in this room, learning, schmoozing, but mostly standing on line. And the reason they're standing on line is they want a bracha from the Rebbe. They're coming from all over the country. He encouraged his Hasidim to live outside of Jerusalem because the cost of apartments in Jerusalem was so much. So he basically told them, the young married ones, you can't live in Jerusalem. It wasn't just encouraged. You can't live in Jerusalem because people can't afford it. So there are Ger Hasidim that live in what used to be development towns, but now they're, populated with a lot of Ger Hasidim. And some of those towns have become too developed, and so he's sending them to other places. But you could be like in smallish towns, Arad, in the south.
I've seen a couple of them grow in the years that I've been going.
Yeah.
Near my son.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, it's springing up houses.
Because when they start those communities, they're starting them already with thousands of people. They don't just start. So there's Chatzor in the north, and so these Hasidim are coming from all over the country to get a bracha from the Rebbe on Chol HaMoed. And Chol HaMoed is one of the times to go. And there's the lines. So we got brought in, and the guy who's bringing us in is explaining, the situation. And he said, if you stand on that line, it's about a 4-hour wait in order to get, it's just, the line goes on. Because the thing is, you're not going in by yourself to have a moment with the Rebbe. No, not there. You are in a line, and you are walked by together with like a group of people, constantly a group of people. It's not even a single file line. You're walking by the Rebbe, and he's looking at you and giving you a bracha, but nobody's getting like a moment with the Rebbe. They're just getting that kind of bracha. And it still takes 4 hours for them to go through. That's how many people are going through. Now, I went with Shauli and my friend Pesach Washansky, this guy who takes us, he has to take us you go through offices and rooms and whatever, and suddenly we show up in the room where the Rebbe is, and everybody else is on this line, but we get sort of taken in. We're also not getting a real moment, but there he tells the Rebbe who we are. He says, this is so-and-so, and my friends introduce me and Shauli, and the Rebbe like nods and I guess gives us a bracha, and then you're out, you're done. If I told you that, even Shauli was saying, was one of the highlights of our Pesach. But you could say, like, why would that be like that? But it was. There was something about it, about everything about it.
You don't get to pick your bracha though, it's just general.
No, you're just going and he's giving you the bracha. That's it.
What if you need something really specific?
Nothing. That's not happening that day. You could on a regular weekday send have put a petition in. We actually did. We actually wrote out something, even though it was Chol HaMoed. We wrote out something on paper, and the Gabbai who took us said, I'll give it to him later. But they weren't even giving him, they didn't even give him their names, nothing. They're just going through and getting now on Sundays, it was famous to go to Lubavitcher Rebbe. Lubavitcher Rebbe would give out dollars. Because also, they were like, how are you going to see Lubavitcher Rebbe at the height? If you went to see Lubavitcher Rebbe in the 60s, yeah, but I'm saying you could go in the 60s and you could spend an hour at Lubavitcher Rebbe. There's a guy who wrote a book called 9.5 Mystics. And he spent like 3 hours talking to Lubavitcher Rebbe, in the early 1960s. But in the 1980s, you're not spending that long with the Rebbe. So what are you going to do if you want to see the Rebbe? So there was a guaranteed way to see the Rebbe. You would stand online, on a Sunday, and everybody eventually gets to go through. You could get like a second. Sometimes he would even like schmooze a little bit with somebody, and they have these like
There's lots of videos.
there's videos of famous people that went through. It's Senator Lieberman or somebody like that, and they get like he, he'll have a moment with them and it'll be captured on a video. But let's say you just want the opportunity, and when you have that opportunity, it's something you remember forever. But what we're being cautioned, and this is what Jason was warning me about before we started today, that what we're being cautious about is that the bracha doesn't come from the person. The whole point. What is the point? The point is that this is channeled. It's like divine energy that is being channeled in your direction. A Rebbe, the Rebbe is a conduit. You could be also a conduit for it. You need to believe that you also can be a conduit for that kind of bracha, not just a Rebbe, but there are people that for whatever reason do seem to be conduits for it in a more kind of dramatic and obvious way. Hasidic Rebbes tend to feel that in their presence. But there were people like the Stipler wasn't a Hasidic Rebbe. He was a scholar and a holy man, but he wasn't a Rebbe. He didn't even have like an official position necessarily. He was just a righteous man. But at some point, he became an address that a lot of people went to for brachas. But like I said, when my mechutin sason azar, when my mechutin is giving me a blessing, it feels holy at that moment too. So this is something that they're doing it. It's part of their official responsibility as channeling this divine energy to us. But what they're doing is also a model for something that we're supposed to do, and especially when we're feeling love and joy. Those are moments to give brachos. At a chasana, there are people that will go to a chassan and kala and ask them for brachos. They will ask them to daven. A lot of times you'll see them under the chuppah with a list of people that were asking for brachos from them. They actually have a list and they're saying Tehillim as they're waiting for the chuppah to happen, because they are feeling love and joy. Anytime you see somebody in a situation where they're feeling love and joy, that's the time to tap them, and say, "Give me a bracha," because that's the ideal condition for giving a bracha. But to know that we all can and we all should give brachas regularly to our friends and our children and to other people. My kids make fun of me because I don't know what it was. My father didn't do the bracha to me on Friday. Yeah, yes, women, for sure. Women give brachas. Women's brachas are very powerful.
Somebody's not supposed to, like, what if you give somebody a bracha for healing, but they're not supposed to be healed?
That's God's business. You're just channeling the energy. If God has an issue, he'll take care of it. It's not, he has his ways, God, to work things out if something's not supposed to happen. Plus, a bracha is not necessarily magic. In other words, what the bracha is doing is enlivening the potential that's already there. It doesn't make something that isn't there happen. It's just enlivening the potential that's already there. There's an assumption of that everybody has lots of potential and that they could use a lot of energy in order to make it happen. There's a wonderful custom at the beginning of davening that a lot of people have. I have a sitter How did I lose that spotlight? Do we remember? No, it says spotlight. Oh, I know why, because I put that. Shouldn't have done that. That's how I lost it.
I want to put that in your pocket either.
So this is my sitter here.
Mhm.
This is, it looks a lot older than it is. I'm gonna show you, I just want to show you another book here.
Sure do. I know which one you're going
I'm
for.
assuming you're taking notes. and everything.
This book,
Can you email this?
Not the one I thought.
see, look at this book and look at this book.
They're exactly the same age.
You see them? Right?
Mhm.
Right. This one is about 120 years old. This is
Younger?
from, this is 300 years. This is from 1699. This is from about 1900. This is nothing. This is a puny, just a nothing. Only 120 years old. In Jewish history, a blink of an eye. Anyway, so this is a Berditchever sitter, it's called. And in the it's a Berditchever sitter. There was a particular, it's not enough to say that somebody davens according to the Ashkenaz custom, because within the Ashkenaz custom, you still have all sorts of options. So one of them is you could daven what's called Nosach Sfard, which many Hasidim daven. But then even within that, there's different types. So one of those types is called Berditchev. It's I think associated with Reb Levi Yitzchak. I think it's associated. Some people, there's another, I think some people also call it a Rodville sitter. Anyways, in this sitter, it says, the Sefer Kavonas HaRizal, in the book of the intents of the Arizal, Rabbi Isaac Luria, Katuv, it's written, Kodem HaTfilah, before prayer, Yekabel Alav, the prayer, should accept upon himself, Mitzvah Saseh, the positive commandment, Shaviyahavta L'reacha Kamocha, to love your neighbor as yourself. V'yechavein lehav es kol echad kenafsho, and he should have intent to love each person like he loves his own soul. And through that, his prayers will include the prayers of all of Israel, because he himself is connecting to all of Israel with his love for them. And therefore, when he prays, his prayers are going to be made up of all of Israel, etc. And if chas v'shalom there's any pain or suffering or sickness in the house of his friend, he will include himself in that suffering and pray for him. That's what you should be thinking before you pray. Before you pray, that your prayers should be in. So many of our prayers are made up of blessings. But this is even another kind of reflection of this notion that even before you pray, you should be feeling love for all members of the Jewish people. You should be feeling love for them, and you should, to the point where you sort of think about everyone, and that you are loving them, and if they have any suffering, that you're including yourself in their suffering, and that your prayers should not just be on your behalf, but they should be on their behalf. All of their issues should be raised up by your issues. And so it really does seem to be another branch of this notion that when a person gives blessing, that they should be feeling love and joy. But that's again another quality that he's not emphasizing it here, but others do, especially Hasidim, emphasize the notion that when you're praying, you should feel joy, because your prayers are also blessings. Much of your prayer is blessings. So even in the process of praying, you're blessing, and therefore your prayers need to have love. And again, there's times when where it's horizontal, but also towards God. Love and joy. It should be a part of our prayers. We're modeling it after the Kohanim, and we know that the Kohanim's blessings, in order for them to be effective, need to have joy, and there needs to be love. So do ours when we give blessings, and that especially in our prayer, love and joy. So my blessing to all of you is that your blessings be filled with love and joy, and that all who are around you receive blessing through you. Hashem's blessing through all of us. And may Hashem answer all of the deepest yearnings of our hearts. And one of those is that we should get together next week on Tuesday night, I think,
Sounds like a plan.
so that we can share once again together.
Baruch Tehiyah. Baruch Tehiyah.
There we go.
Rabbi,
Yeah.
I just asked about the stipler. Did you feel
Yeah.
at that moment any warmth, any or chastised, or kind of like tongue in cheek? What did you feel?
I thought it, I was, whenever I was in front of him, I was terrified. I was always terrified in front of him. I always felt fear. But the minute it happened, it was like, also, it was funny to me. It was funny, but he didn't look, he had no indication that it was a joke.
Okay.
You know, I don't know, who knows what he was meant to convey with that, but I took it as awesome the minute it happened. And I've been telling it over ever since it happened. But I'll be honest, whenever I was in his presence, I was mostly what I felt was awe approaching fear. And I stumbled. I always stammer in front of great people, and there was a lot of stammering.
And here he is.
There he
with
is.
His book.
Look how close it
Right.
is. Here, show it. Just show it. 1 second. I want to.
Now we
Here.
will have to see
Here,
it.
just look how close is.
No, you got me.
Can you
Yeah,
can
there
you see how close it is to
Huh?
his eyes?
Yeah.
He's reading over there like that. That's what it looked like, even closer when he was reading your Vittel. All right, be well, guys.
Bye.
All right, bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Okay, I have to share, when I was